Daily news and analysis. We keep you informed and inspired.
This is World Today.
Namibia's president has arrived in Beijing to continue her state visit to China. China urged the Netherlands to stabilize semiconductor supply chains as Dutch officials seek a new chapter in its ties with Beijing. Meanwhile, the country is testing a new path toward reusable rockets with a sea-based booster recovery system. Welcome to World Today, a news program with a different perspective. I'm Anna in Beijing. To listen to this episode again or to catch up on previous episodes, you can download our podcast by searching World Today. Our top story, Namibian President Nandi-Ndaitwah is continuing her visit to China as Namibia looks to deepen ties with the world's second-largest economy. The trip comes as the Southern African nation seeks to transform its economy by moving beyond raw material exports toward value-added industries and industrialization. Before arriving in the capital city, Beijing, the president visited Guangdong province, one of China's leading hubs for technology and advanced manufacturing, and Sichuan, a major agricultural province. The 7-day visit is her first to China since taking office. So for more on China-Namibia relations, we are joined by Dr. He Wenping, Senior Research Fellow at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. Before we talk about the visit itself, could you please tell us more about President Nandi-Ndaitwah? As we know, she's Namibia's first female president since independence and one of the only two sitting female leaders in Africa today. What kind of a political journey has brought her to this point?
Well, yes, Namibia president together with Tanzania president, Dr. Hassan, you see there are two now the female president in African countries. Actually, of course, before, Liberia also has a lady president called Yosef. So if we look about all her political career, we will see actually she came all the way now to the top leadership. It's not saying everything is that easygoing. Actually, she has been serving as the cabinet, those very key minister ever since the Luchama's time, ever since Namibia got independence. In the year 1990, the South Korea, by that time, is apartheid regime. They colonized Namibia. So since 1990, and then they got independence. So SWAPO is the leading party. So she has been serving as the very key political leader also, together with the nation founder, Nuchama. She has been serving as like a foreign minister and also deputy prime minister and then prime minister and then deputy president, all the way since last year, she became elected as the president.
That's very impressive. And we know this is her first day visit to China since taking office. How important is this first visit, and what does it suggest about Namibia's diplomatic and development priorities under this new administration?
Yes, because President Namibia even chose China as the very first overseas visit, which demonstrates very clearly that Namibia, under the new leadership from the President in Tobo, pay great attention to developing a very friendly bilateral relations with China. Because we have been building a very close friendship relation with Namibia ever since Namibia got its independence in 1990. So like the first president, we talk about the Nuchama, has been visiting China as many times, maybe 20 more times. And their leadership party called SWAPO also has building very strong relationship with Communist Party of China. So this traditional friendship now getting into the new stage will be renewed and also will be upgraded to a new high. So this visit coming from Namibia new lady president gives this very clear message already sent out to whole of the world and also to Africa and then to the even Southern Africa, the location in Namibia is. So this is very good. And also from his visiting this schedule, we can see starting from Guangdong, then she visited Sichuan, and now come to Beijing. You see, every visiting shows clearly they want to establish a very close relation with those high technical development with the renewable energy, because this is all starting from Guangdong. And then visiting Sichuan, that's an agricultural big province in China. So they also have a very long this agricultural cooperation with Namibia. So President now visit to Sichuan also shows they want to further strengthen this relationship with China in agriculture, this area. Every visiting shows this development priority and also shows in general that is to make China-Namibia relationship into a new high.
Yes, this isn't just a brief diplomatic visit. It's a 7-day trip covering many provinces and cities, as you pointed out. Dr. He, building on that, we know since May 1st, China has introduced zero tariffs on products from African countries. Namibia has already recorded a trade surplus in agricultural exports to China. The president also visited agricultural projects in Sichuan. So how do you see cooperation in this area delivering tangible benefits for both countries?
Oh, yes, this is going to be a very important area for China-Namibia relationship, because Namibia only have 2 million more population. You see, but the size of the country actually is quite large. Even though I haven't been to Namibia, but I know this country very well. You know why? Because my master degree dissertation was talking about Namibia.
Wow.
And because I graduated from Peking University, my master degree is in the year 1989. So just at the eve of Namibia, we got independence. And then, so my master degree dissertation is talking about the South Africa's policy, how this policy evolution towards Namibia. And later on, when I do research about Africa, I also pick up Namibia as the case study, country profile to focus on Namibia. It has a quite long link with Namibia. So Namibia is very small by population, but big size. And also they have a very rich, this agricultural, this development potential, even though there has quite a lot of desert, Namibu desert over there around the coastal area. But unfortunately, sometimes, Southern Africa, including Namibia, they're suffering a lot of those extreme weather. Sometimes it's flood, sometimes it's drought. So agriculturally speaking, sometimes also facing the shortage of the food, and even agriculture cannot be guaranteed every year got a harvest. So from time to time, China also offer those emergency food supply help to Namibia and including other countries like Zimbabwe. So that is why Namibia, of course, want to learn the experience from China, how to develop. Like we have hybrid rice, those technical know-how. We have advanced technical technology. Like this time around, President of Namibia visited Sichuan. She visited a lot of agricultural company, and then even check all those, the crops, those rice, those seeds. So give the order to her, those minister, and then saying we have to pick up a very good, suitable those seeds, like how to use in Namibia. In their land. So this is a very important area. We have an agricultural demonstration, technology demonstration center, and also we have been constantly offer our expertise, how to help the local people to improve the yields, output from the agricultural, this productivity. So many ways has been pushed forward.
We know that many African countries hope to move up the value chain and move beyond simply exporting raw materials. Namibia has abundant strategic minerals, while China has a strong manufacturing and industrial technology. So how can the two countries work together, to go beyond simply exporting raw materials and instead build more value-added industries that benefits both sides?
Oh, yes, of course, this is our common wish. And also now we join the hands together and make joint effort to make the things not only potential, also make the potential becoming reality. Because many African countries, including Namibia, they have a rich raw material. Like Namibia, they have a very rich uranium. Actually, Chinese company already been there to join with Namibia company to develop this uranium, this industry. Not only get raw material, just export them out, not at all. Now, if you go to see our company working in Namibia, and then all this, how to do further develop these resources, and then make becoming semi-products and even more value-added products. And then, of course, you can get more value. And then after the more additional procedure has been done. So this is Namibia's wish. That is why the Namibia president chose Guangdong as the first step to visit, because lots of company, this frontier company, even the uranium company from Guangdong, and then they also want to develop the nuclear industrial plant to come out with nuclear power, this facility. This also has been done in a joint way. So Chinese company based in Namibia, not mention this long existing one, also the future one. If you go to Namibia, they also warmly welcome you. So now all eyes on how to share the technical know-how, how to improve the local people's capacity. And then eventually they can handle all those business with their own engineer, with their own skillful workers, with their own technical know-how, and then to add more value for their own resources. So this is a joint wish and a joint efforts has been made. This is also exactly one of the visiting those objectives coming from Namibia president.
Then one last question. Of course, China isn't the only country strengthening ties with Namibia. The US and EU have both rolled out major initiatives in Africa in recent years. Some analysts view these efforts as partly aimed at counterbalancing China's influence in the region. And Namibia has become an important partner because of its strategic location and mineral resources. So from your perspective, what makes China's cooperation model different? And where do you think China's biggest advantages lie?
Yeah, our biggest advantage lies in equal partnership. We treated African countries as equal, like a brother, sister, and also all-weather friendship. Never saying bring our own interests even at a high priority. No, we regarded the African country as our brother and regarded their interest, national interest, as the priority concern. And also China's all those development cooperation, including our development assistance, all follow the principle even made it by our Chairman Mao and the Premier Zhou Enlai's that time. That is no strings attached. All those Chinese assistance and development cooperation, we are not intervening with Africans' domestic issue, and also not tied with any other preconditions, saying, wow, like a U.S., like a Western country, even including World Bank and IMF, any money coming from them, they have to put forward a long list, those preconditions. You should do this, you should do that. Even those domestic, like even financial policy, they also will come up with a lot of requirements. But this is not the way China has been always doing. We never intervene any other countries' domestic issue. So this sincerity, also friendship, like equal partnership, and also not intervene other countries' domestic issue, no strings attached. All those points has been serving as China's this very, if we talk about advantage, I think these are the advantages. This totally different to Western countries. They are still in their mind, they seems regarding themselves as the master. Like Namibia also being colonized by Germany, by British earlier before, and later on by Germany. So those European countries still has this mindset. Maybe they will still regarded themselves as the master, and then treated those African countries not equal way. They get used to give order and also intervene other countries' domestic issue. So of course, this is not that time anymore. Now it's 21st century. Now the global South country stand up and also made clear now their own master for their own future.
Thanks, Dr. He, for those insightful analysis. That was Dr. He Wenping, Senior Research Fellow at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. This is World Today. Stay tuned.
Hello, I'm Yan Liang, Kramer Chair Professor of Economics at Willamette University. In a rapidly changing world, staying informed has never been more important. World Today delivers sharp analysis, global perspectives, and the stories behind the headlines. It is your trusted source to understand what's shaping our world. World Today, bringing the world closer.
You've been listening to World Today. Chinese Commerce Minister Wang Wentao is urging the Netherlands to provide an impartial and predictable business environment for Chinese companies. During talks in Beijing with his Dutch counterpart, Sjoerd Sjoerdsman, Wang also called for stable semiconductor supply chains and the proper handling of commercial disputes involving relevant companies. Sjoerdsman said the Netherlands is committed to deepening trade and investment ties and strengthening dialogue and providing a stable business environment for Chinese businesses. The Dutch minister has been on a 3-day visit to China since Tuesday, leading a delegation of 17 Dutch companies from the logistics, agriculture, and high-tech sectors. So for more on this, joining us now is Chen Weihua, former chief Washington correspondent and EU bureau chief of China Daily. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Chen.
Thank you for having me, Anna.
This visit comes at a critical time, especially for companies like ASML and Nexperia. The Dutch minister even said he wants to make a clean break from the frictions of recent years. So why is the Netherlands reaching out to China now, and what strategic and practical considerations do you think are driving this shift?
Well, of course, the China-Dutch relationship, especially the trade investment relationship, has taken heavy blow. The past years, and the major case, of course, is the Dutch government seizure of the Nexperia, owned by the Chinese company Wingtech, and also and the U.S. pressure, ASML has restricted exports of equipment to China, over the past years. So this is, obviously the Dutch government also took a reputation hit, over its treatment of Nexperia, because, this is unlawful seizure, even considered by many European member states. So I think after the new Dutch government took office in late February, the minority government, obviously, I think it is in the position to correct maybe the mistake. I think because a lot is at stake. China and Dutch has a very robust trade relationship. The Netherlands is one of the largest trading partners of China in the EU. Number 2, number 3. When you talk about trade and investment, so it created the Nexperia case obviously created a lose-lose situation for China and the Netherlands, because China retaliated obviously, to protect the lawful rights of its companies. And if you talk about the ASML, it's about roughly 30% of sales. The revenues come from China, even in 2025, and many restrictions. So I think this is obviously, a lot of companies that you mentioned, the 17 companies accompanying the trade ministers to China. So they want a predictable and, environment for trade and investment.
Then building on the case of Nexperia and ASML, the Netherlands seems to be caught between two pressures. On one hand, continued U.S. technology restrictions against China. On the other, the need to maintain access to the Chinese market. So how much flexibility does the Dutch government really have in shaping its own China policy today?
Well, it is very hard to say, actually. I would say, the U.S. has exercised outside influence over not just the Netherlands, but I would say most European countries, EU member states. So that has been the case for the past decades. And if you talk about the U.S. pressure on EU, including the Netherlands, to ban Huawei 5G. And so the EU, the Netherlands obviously is not just a EU member, it's a NATO member state. And so it depends on the U.S. a lot. So that said, I think the EU and the Netherlands especially, they recognize, they are awakened by the extra, intervention by Washington, so-called extraterritoriality. I mean, if you are thinking about what the U.S. Congress is mulling a bill, trying to pass a bill, so-called the Match Act, to further restrict the ASML equipment export to China, the DUV, the EUV, the high-tech chip-making equipment that only ASML can produce. At the same time, the Trump administration has really alienated the Netherlands as a EU member state with many, I think, more practices. Whether in international relations, in trade. I would say, Netherlands want to resist, partly by depending on the power of the EU as, a single market. So, the trade minister, Sergio actually recently went to the U.S. to pressure the U.S. Congress not to pass such a bill because it will actually infringing on the Netherlands' economic interest enormously. But I would still be cautiously waiting how much courage, the Dutch government will display in the coming days and months.
Mm-hmm. About the delegation, it's interesting that the delegation isn't just about semiconductors, right? It also includes companies from agriculture and logistics, some of which have previously been affected by the trade tensions between the two countries. So what a message does this send about what Dutch businesses are hoping to achieve in China?
Yeah, I want to just repeat what the Minister Wang Wentao just said. He hoped the Netherlands would create a fair, impartial, and predictable environment for Chinese investors and businesses. I think obviously, both sides stand to lose if we, have a tit-for-tat relationship in trade. China obviously hope the Netherlands will not succumb to U.S. pressure, as it did previously, and it will stand up for its own sovereignty because, obviously the Netherlands is a sovereign nation and should not listen to Washington's order, that harms the Netherlands' business interest. At the same time, China, is not the China 20, 30, 40 years ago. China is an important player in the international economy, trade and investment. It has a lot of leverage, even in the semiconductor supply chain. Even that the Netherlands has the ASML, but, China showed that, if China retaliates, the automobile industry from Germany to Japan could be impacted. So it's not good news to anyone. So I think China and the Netherlands should try to achieve a win-win. So this the dialogue, the visits this time is a good move, I would say. They even established a so-called kind of a committee for business leaders and so to talk about the issues. So it's the right move in the good direction.
Mm-hmm. Then building on that, China has invited the Netherlands to expand investment beyond the semiconductors. So looking beyond those differences, why do sectors such as agriculture, logistics, and green development have the potential to serve as long-term pillars of China-Netherlands cooperation?
Yeah, I think the two countries have a very strong cooperation in trade investment. If you talk about the Dutch baby formula by the Dutch company Friesland, it's very popular in China. It's a big investor in China. The Dutch company Parks Environment Technologies sees the great market potential in China in wastewater treatment. And of course, we talked about high tech already, but we talk about the Netherlands is known for the port of Rotterdam. China is the largest trader in the world, and the port of Rotterdam prosperity depends a lot on trade with China. And at the same time, I want to say China exports wind farm, wind turbines, solar panels, and now increasingly Chinese EV are going to the Netherlands. So it's a great potential for both countries.
Indeed. Thanks, Mr. Chen, for those valuable insights. That was Chen Weihua, former chief Washington correspondent and EU Bureau Chief of China Daily. More to come. China is testing a new path toward reusable rockets with a sea-based booster recovery system. A new leadership race begins in Britain, raising fresh questions over the country's decade-long political instability. This is World Today. We'll be back after a short break. You've been listening to World Today with me, Anna, in Beijing. China is taking another step forward in space exploration and reusable rocket technology. The country is preparing for the maiden flight for the Long March 10B rocket from the Wenchang spacecraft launch site in the southern island province of Hainan. The launch window runs from Thursday through next Monday. The mission's main goal is to test what could become the world's first maritime net recovery system, designed to catch the rocket's first stage booster at sea. If successful, industry observers say the technology could give China one of the simplest and most cost-effective methods for recovering and reusing rockets. So for more on this, Xu Yawen spoke with Zhang Fan, Associate Professor of Astronomy Department of Beijing Normal University.
Professor Zhang, this maritime net recovery technology is a world-first innovation. So could you briefly explain its core breakthroughs and the complete working process applied to the Long March 10B rocket in simple terms?
Right, so will be the first time, if this succeeds, this will be the first time that China succeed in recovering a rocket. So that makes China the second country in the world to be able to recover a rocket. And in terms of the first in the world, this rocket uses a different technology from SpaceX, its Falcon series at least. For Falcon 9, which is a sort of a comparable sized rocket, that rocket would actually land with its own feet. It has this little feet that will extend when it lands and sort of stand on the ground vertically. The Chinese version, this time, when it goes up, it doesn't have those feet, and the recovery will down by a ship out at sea with a scaffolding, essentially, with wires hanging on those scaffolding. So when the rocket drops in between the scaffolding, the wires move around and quickly approach the body of the rocket, and there will be hooks on the rocket that hooks onto those tether wires, and that holds the rocket in place. So basically, the landing mechanism is moved from the rocket onto the landing platform. So that saves about 15% of the overall weight. That's a huge amount. If you remember the rocket recovery, it's all about doing things cheaply. Having that weight going up and down, that will cost so much fuel. And this alternative methods actually makes a lot of economic sense.
Professor, you briefly touch upon how the vertical landing solution works. Could you elaborate more on what unique advantages does China's innovative net-based rocket recovery technology have in terms of payload capacity and launch cost control?
So the whole point of doing reusable rockets is to reduce the cost, because the rocket, if you use it once and you throw it away, it's very costly. This idea of having reusable rocket is not actually that new. People have thought about this ever since the beginning of rocketry. But the problem is, because of the vibrations and everything, the extreme situations that the rocket go through, it is not guaranteed that once you try to do this reusability thing, that the rocket can last long enough. Roughly, the calculation is that you need to reuse it at least 10 times for it to make economic sense, because the extra development and instrumentation that you need for this capability to actually work costs extra money. So you need at least use it 10 times. So before SpaceX, it's not like nobody else thought about this, but they were the ones that had the courage to actually go out and just try it out. And it turns out it is possible, which is why now China is also developing this technology, but using sort of a further refinement on top of it. And this net-based situation is one of those further refinements to further drop the cost of the payload. So SpaceX can now do something like a few thousand US dollars per kilogram. Other people without reusable rockets can do like 15,000 per kilogram. So that's a huge difference. With this net-based technology, they haven't put out a sort of price list yet. The rocket isn't fully sort of tested yet, but with this technology, just from losing the feet, you gain 15% extra cost cutting from that.
Professor, in addition to verifying the new net-based recovery technology, this mission will also test several key core technologies, such as this parallel ignition of 7 YF-100 key liquid oxygen kerosene engines. And we have heard that these core technologies will also serve as the technical foundation for China's 2030 manned lunar landing mission. Is that the case?
So for the 2030 lunar mission, it is correct, because essentially Long March 10, the version of Long March 10 that would go to the moon will have 3 of this Long March 10B that will be tested in a few days' time. 3 of those bundled together to form the first stage. So essentially, Long March 10B is a third of the rocket that will go to the moon. So if this works, obviously the lunar mission rocket will be working. And also the lunar version doesn't need to be reusable, because to put as much weight into space to go all the way to the moon, you basically don't want to waste fuel coming back down. So in a way, it's actually easier to make the lunar version. So if this one works, the lunar version is almost certainly to work. So that's that.
Professor, recently we have seen that China's commercial aerospace industry has achieved rapid progress. For instance, the country has built its first sea-based liquid rocket launch and recovery test platform at the Oriental Aerospace Port in Yantai, Shandong Province. So what are the key differences between reusable liquid rockets and the traditional non-reusable solid rockets used in previous offshore launch missions? And how will these new test platform boost the development of China's commercial aerospace sector?
Right. So the thing with solid rockets is they're very simple to maintain. They don't need to be filled up before the launch. The fuel is just a block of solid you just store it in the rocket, and that's it. And once you launch it, you just lit up. It's kind of like a firework. The problem also is it's easy to maintain, it's easy to light up, but once it lit up, it just goes. It's very difficult to control. In comparison, if you have a sort of a liquid rocket, you can control how much fuel is injected, and you can do a lot sort of more finer sort of control of your rocket. That's why the reusable rockets, they're all sort of liquid. And the solid is also a option for reducing the cost, because it's so simple, right? If you can control it to the extent that's sufficient, then it's so much easier to maintain and everything. So in terms of offshore launch platforms, once you have a liquid rocket, obviously you need to keep fuel. And if you use things like liquid oxygen, liquid methane, then you also need low temperature storage. So it's a lot more complicated, a lot more supporting infrastructures, sort of facilities you would need to be on that launch platform than what you would need for launching a solid rocket, which is basically just a flat barge. Any flat barge would do for a solid rocket.
And lastly, Professor, very briefly, if the Long March 10B's mission and the net recovery technology succeed, what significance will this have for the development of China's commercial aerospace industry and breaking the global technological monopoly in reusable rockets?
So obviously, having an alternative to the U.S., Blue Origin also has a reusable. So the U.S. has 2 companies can do reusable rockets. Having competition is always good, especially since China's technology is from the engine down to the way of the recovery, and everything is different. So having this variety, having different people trying different things, all in all, it gives you the better possibility of actually further reducing the cost to as much as possible. So that's good for everybody. And once you achieve that, what you could do, and what China would be looking forward to doing, is to develop a low Earth orbit economy. So essentially, in the past, going to space is always sort of an exploration, adventure for scientific discovery. So in the future, though, you can go there. For example, people have been thinking about doing solar panels, doing a power station up there, beaming the power either back down to Earth or sort of recharge other things in space, or you put computing centers up there. And in fact, you could have manufacturing facilities up there in space as well because of the zero gravity and everything. It's high vacuum. Any sort of a very precise, very sensitive material that you need to make up there, you could possibly do it in space. So all in all, there's something beyond just launching vehicles. There's a whole new frontier where we can do economy. And this is what China is really eyeing. And in terms of China's commercial space, this reusability would really be sort of a milestone towards finally realizing that goal.
That was Zhang Fan, an associate professor of astronomy department of Beijing Normal University, speaking with Xuan Wen. The race to replace UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer as Labour leader is officially underway, with nominations opening on Thursday. Starmer announced last month that he would step down once his party selects a successor, ending a tenure that began with a landslide election victory 2 years ago. The new Prime Minister could be named as early as next Friday, marking Britain's 7th Prime Minister in just 10 years, one of the most frequent changes at Downing Street in nearly 2 centuries. So for more on this, let's have Dr. Mohammed Ali Nasir, Professor of Economics at the University of Leeds and visiting fellow at the University of Cambridge. Thanks for joining us, Professor.
Thanks for having me.
Professor, the UK could soon have its 7th Prime Minister in a decade. How do you explain the deeper causes behind this decade of political instability? Why has it become so difficult for, British leaders to stay in power?
Yes, unfortunately, we are going for another Prime Minister. The last decade has been a decade of political instability, and last 2 decades, I would say, been decades of economic instability too. Mm-hmm. So there are various factors which are causing or which have caused political instability. And one major factor is Brexit. As we had Brexit and we left the European Union, that has negatively affected the politics and the economy of Britain. Other than that, there are been consequences of COVID that has negatively affected the British society and British economy. And the economy has not been doing very well in the last few years. We are facing stagnation. There's been an issue of very high inflations. Inequality has increased. The public services and the National Health Service, they have been not doing very well, and there's been a squeeze on the living standard of British public. So there is a lot of resentment in the public, and the governance has become more challenging in contemporary Britain. So that is a major factor, and that stagnating economy and dissatisfaction of electorate translates into political instability. There are also other political causes. For instance, there's a political divide and lack of discipline in politics. I think that has also played a major role. So putting all these factors together has caused political instability in Britain, and now having the 7th Prime Minister in 10 years is just a manifestation of that difficult economic and political reality.
Mm-hmm. Then let's look specifically at Starmer's challenges before talking about the new nominations. How do you assess the key factors behind Labour's poor performance in recent local elections and the growing pressure on his leadership within the party in these 2 years?
Yeah, so when the Labour Party came into power with Keir Starmer as his Prime Minister, they had landslide victory and very big mandate. However, they failed to deliver in the 2 years' time. The economy didn't do very well, as I said, and there is also political division in the Labour Party and its electorate and its supporters. So that is shown in the recent local elections where the Labour Party didn't do very well. And there are several reasons of that. One is of course the economy and the promise which were made, and people were expecting a change which they didn't see. And then also there are multiple flanks in the Labour Party. So there's a left flank which is more now leaning towards the Green Party, and more towards the left. And there's a right flank in the Labour Party, which is now leaning toward the UK reformer. They've been more sympathetic to the Reform UK, which is another political party. And those are the Labour supporters, which are mostly the blue collars, working class voters, which used to think that the Labour Party is their party, but now they are not satisfied with that. So both from the left flank and the right flank of the party, there's exodus to Green Party and the Reform UK, which are the left and right wing parties. And there's also been some ethical concerns and scandal where Stammer appointed Peter Mandelson as the UK's ambassador in Washington, and his appointment and his close friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, that created a scandal and backlash in Britain. So these factors have caused the demise of Keir Starmer's premiership.
Then about these new leadership race, who are the names to watch, and how different would they be from Stammer, especially when it comes to Labour's traditional left-wing ideas versus Stammer's more centrist approach?
Yeah. So the nomination process has just started, I think from today, and as of a few minutes ago, the only candidate which is being declared so far is Andy Burnham, he is a former mayor of Manchester, Greater Manchester, and is nicknamed as King of the North. So he is the only candidate which has come forward so far. There have been some other names which people were talking about. For instance, the West Streeting, he is a former health secretary, or Alkanes, he's a former armed forces minister who actually resigned under Keir Starmer, and also Angela Rayner, she's a former deputy prime minister. But these people, they have not put themselves forward. So it seems so far the only contestant is Andy Burnham. And if he remains the only contestant, then probably by the end of next week, we will have a new prime minister, which would be him, Andy Burnham. And his style is different from Keir Starmer, because he's been mayor of the Greater Manchester, and his approach is more focused on regions. So regional devolution, as compared to Keir Starmer, his approach was more governing from the top, governing from the Whitehall, governing from the London, so more top-down approach. Whereas Andy Burnham, his approach is more from, you can say, bottom up, or his focus is more on regional investment and addressing regional imbalances. Whereas the Keir Starmer approach was centrist, more focused from top to bottom, and more obsession with the fiscal rule. Where in the case of Andy Burnham, we would say he would be focusing more on rebalancing and shifting the power from London to other parts of Britain. So we may see a difference in their approach.
Professor, one last question. Let's finally move to China-UK relations. We know Starmer's China visit earlier this year signaled a more pragmatic approach, especially on trade, investment, and economic cooperation. So if Britain gets a new prime minister, do you expect that approach toward China to continue, or could we see a major policy shift?
Yeah, I expect, very confident that pragmatism will prevail and persist. But what we may see is perhaps more localized and region to region economic engagement, which I think is also a good idea because China has made a lot of success in terms of regional development and addressing regional inequality. I think that's area where UK can definitely cooperate with China. So we will definitely see a continuity of engaging with China, and because China is simply too vital to ignore in terms of China's economic might, its technological advancement, which I think the earlier guest was talking about. China is just the reality and it cannot be ignored. So it is almost impossible to now not engage with China and not cooperate with China. So I would see that definitely Andy Burnham or whoever is the successor of Keir Starmer will continue the policy of engagement due to the growth imperative. The economic growth is very much needed in Britain, and that requires cooperation with China to tackle the other wider issues like climate change, and also looking at the recent geopolitical events. That also requires cooperation with China. So I do see that it not be only that this policy will continue, but maybe there is more further engagement and enhancement in the policy of engaging China, I think, under Andy Burnham.
Thanks, Professor, for those valuable insights. That was Dr. Mohammed Ali Nasir, Professor of Economics at University of Leeds and a visiting fellow at the University of Cambridge. U.S. President Donald Trump has decided to remove Syria from Washington's list of state sponsors of terrorism. Trump informed Syria's transitional president, Ahmed al-Shara, of the decision in a letter following their meeting at the NATO summit in Turkey. Trump also pledged to remove all obstacles to Syria's reconstruction, saying American companies are ready to invest in the country. He added the decision has been submitted to Congress, which will have 45 days to review it before it takes effect. For more on this, let's have my colleague Gao Yingshi in the studio. Thanks for joining us, Yingshi.
Thanks for having me.
The U.S. is taking Syria off its list of state sponsors of terrorism. What's this list and what will Syria gain once it's removed?
Oh, sure. Let me start with what the list actually is. What this state-sponsored terrorism list is one of the most kind of severe labels the United States government can attach to another country. So Syria has actually been on the list since like 1979. So being in the list cuts you off from most of U.S. foreign aid. Second, you are definitely banned from buying American weapons. And third, which is I think like most damaging part, there are heavy restrictions on financial transaction. That doesn't just affect American banks. Banks in Europe and the Gulf region, they'll know that if they touch the Syrian money, they'll be blacklisted by the U.S. government. So that's why the U.S. uses tricks to punish the country it doesn't like for long term. In practice, in Syria, like even simple things become difficult, like wearing money into a country, or like opening a letter of credit for trade, and maybe insuring a cargo ship headed to maybe a Syrian port. So removing this designation isn't just symbolic, it's very practical. It tells banks around the world that they can do business here now. And when you combine this with the executive order Trump signed last year, which ending the border sanctions program, you are looking at the Syria being reconnected to the world economy. It's just like what the Syrians' own central bank governor said, that this opens wider doors for investment and brings Syria back into the global economy. And in this point, I think he's right. But there's another detail I think we should pay attention to, that it doesn't take effect immediately. So like Trump has notified Congress, and there is a mandatory 45-day review period. So there's also possibility that the Congress could push back during the window.
In Shi, many U.S. reports highlighted a point that Ahmed al-Sharaa was once a commander in a group linked to al-Qaeda, the terrorist organization responsible for the September 11th attack. Now Trump says he's respected by everybody. Why has the U.S. changed its view so dramatically?
Yeah, Sharaa was once a commander in Al-Qaeda Nusra Front, but he broke with the group in 2016, and in late 2024, he led a coalition that bring down the former Assad government. That's his personal story. But right now, to understand this transformation, the most important background is the ongoing conflict between the United States and Iran. And there's a strategic picture. So since last February, the United States and Israel have been at war with Iran and its regional allies. So after U.S.-Israel strikes killed Iranian officials, including its supreme leader himself, Iran hit back with missiles and drones against Israel, Gulf region countries, and also American bases across the region, and moved to block the Strait of Hormuz. And even now, the situation remains changing. So Trump just said that the memorandum is over, and he just restart bombing Iran again. So I think about what Syria means in this fight. So for decades, Syria under Assad was Iran's most valuable ally and a land bridge connecting Tehran to the Hezbollah in Lebanon. And he's basically the backbone of Iran's the axis of resistance. So when Sharaa toppled Assad, he doesn't just remove a garment, he basically cut that bridge. So he took Iran's most important regional allies off the board, and that's something American power never achieved before. So, from the Washington's perspective, in the middle of the conflict with Iran, it really doesn't matter what Sharaa actually did 10 years ago. The right question should be asked is is Sharaa a use for today? And clearly the answer is yes. Sharaa keeps Iran locked out of Syria, which Trump has actively encouraged, and he can put Syria into this kind of a pro-American Gulf country backed camp. So, for Washington, embracing Sharaa is it is confronting Tehran. So it can squeeze Iran both militarily and diplomatically.
Then let's talk about the reconstruction Trump mentioned. Trump says U.S. companies are ready to invest in Syria. Why do we see some eagerness?
Oh, yes, both economically and politically. So economically, there's Syria is basically the largest construction project in the world right now. So after the civil war, construction needed everywhere. So looking to who's moving first, Saudi Arabia moving very fast with several firms planning $1 billion of investment, another a Gulf country pouring money. But why? So because for decades Syria under Assad was the cornerstone of Iran's influence. So with Assad's gun, there's kind of a chance to pull Syria into the Gulf countries' orbit. So whoever moves first gets this kind of the influence.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Yingshi, for those valuable insights. That was my colleague Gao Yingshi. That's all the time for this edition of World Today. A quick recap of today's headlines. Namibia's president has arrived in Beijing to continue her state visit to China. China is testing a new path toward reusable rockets with a sea-based booster recovery system. And Trump says he has decided to remove Syria from U.S. terror list. To listen to this episode again or to catch up on previous episodes, you can download our podcast by searching World Today. I'm Glenna in Beijing. Thank you so much for listening. Bye for now.